Boxing Ego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Solid night of boxing tonight, and that was headlined by David Lemieux, Curtis Stevens. I've already dropped my post-fight on that, and David Lemieux looked sharp. He was very aggressive. And Curtis Stevens, he looked good in spots. He was actually, the tide seemed to be shifting his way, and then he got caught with, they traded hooks. You hook with the hooker, and Lemieux got there quicker, and it was just murder she wrote in the third round. Crazy knockout of the year candidate. For more on that, make sure you guys check out my video. Now, I told you I was going to come back with the Gamboa post-fight versus RENE Alvarado. Gamboa did win the decision. The fight, I want to talk about that on my channel. Let me see, this is where, so I tweeted this on Instagram. And I just said I was watching the fight, 330 likes. So this was the co-main event. Gamboa just signed a deal with Golden Boy, and that's his new promoter. I want to talk about the fight. Again, this is I give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is Gamboa has a fight and he has a new promoter, so hopefully with that situation he becomes more active, because that's what's plagued him in recent years, right? Gamboa was someone who was referred to as the mini Mike Tyson or baby Tyson, partly because his look, his flat top, and just kind of stocky build and muscular, and in the lower divisions he was a knockout guy on HBO. Now, this is where it stops. HBO, and I kid you not, watch Yuriorkis Gamboa greatest hits or try to find old YouTube videos of the HBO telecast. They were really riding for Yuriorkis Gamboa when he was providing the knockouts in the lighter divisions. But this telecast, I was not a fan of the commentary on HBO, and yeah, people were smashing. And I'm gonna that's what I want to talk about. The fight was the fight, and it was, I'm not gonna lie, say it was the most exciting fight, but it was solid. You know what I mean? There was a reason the things that were happening, and that's what I want to talk about. So I tweeted this: Lampley focusing on the crowd boos in the Gamboa fight. Who cares? Gamboa off layoffs of inactivity, controlling the fight. Fans are probably drunk, and that's what it is. Why? In the telecast, why are you so adamant and focusing on the negative? You know what I mean? This is what HBO has been doing a lot in the past few years. You're focusing in on the crowd boos. Like, to be honest, I've seen Keith Thurman versus Robert Guerrero. That wasn't a boring fight, and the crowd started booing, right? There was a particular round. I even heard the crowd boo at Bradley versus Ruslan Provodnikov. You know what I mean? And that was like, there was maybe one round that was like they both took the round off. You know what I mean? It wasn't as exciting as maybe some of the previous rounds. But Bradley was fighting with the fucking concussion. Like, you know what I mean? It was a war. It was a fight of the year candidate. I just talked to Bradley the other day, and he said it was his toughest fight, right? I'll put the interview up. But my point being is, the crowd is the crowd. You know what I mean? Some people might be casual fans and don't really watch boxing. They're just boxing in their town, so they'll go to it. Or they're just in the casino and they're like, oh, what's this? And something to do. Some people are drunk. Who cares? You know what I mean? I just don't understand why HBO would focus so much energy on a live national telecast. HBO has more subscribers than Showtime on what the crowd's doing and them booing. Like, it's one thing to bring it up, and it's not even just focusing on the crowd booing, it's the negative. If the fight, and this is going to lead me into this next tweet, 10 likes, 1 retweet, and I said it, HBO really needs to stop this whole all action or it's not entertaining watchable boxing. That's why Showtime is killing the first half of 2017. Now, this is, if anybody works for HBO, you know me, I keep it real. I keep it 100 with you guys. And this is my honest thoughts. I like HBO. It's been a landmark for boxing. I like their production value. But in terms of their commentary, it is something they really need to work on. We need to be honest here And straight up, Showtime has been killing the competition the first half of 2017. They put on the better shows, period. And the good shows that we're looking forward to as fans on HBO, a lot of them are pay-per-view, right? We know HBO went through, I think, a buyout or whatever. Some people lost their job after Triple G, Lemieux. 2016, they had budget cuts. But if they're going to keep their boxing programming alive, I think they do have to improve their commentary. And that's just not focusing on the negativity. Like in the Gamboa fight, like it's almost like a form. Like I watched a lot of history and stuff, but the military, there were points in history where the military would try to figure out different tactics to, like when they captured enemies and wanted information. And one of the tactics that they looked into is brainwashing, right? How they could brainwash and, you know what I mean? Just like hypnosis or whatever to try to get like important intel and data and stuff like that. And what HBO does, it to me is almost like a form of brainwashing, because when you put that toxicity out there, you put that negative shit out there with all boxing fights that are not necessarily Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux, just nonstop action. And I'm going to talk about that more. But when you put that out there, then impressionable fans who maybe just don't watch boxing all the time or whatnot, this is what they're going to hear. This is what they're going to be like referring to. And this is what they're going to take with them. Like, hey, this is boring. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're putting focused. It's like if I went to a banquet or some shit and I'm like, hey, everybody, I got a pimple. Look at this pimple. You know what I mean? I'm bringing attention to the pimple. Like, people might not have noticed it had I just left it alone and not said nothing. But if I'm picking at it and constantly talking about it, then people are going, I'm drawing attention to it, right? And a good fight's a good fight, a bad fight's a bad fight. But this is the thing. Only in boxing, only in the sport of boxing do you get this, where different styles aren't appreciated and they're like almost condemned. And this is really what I want to talk about in this particular video. Like, you gotta be like, for me, and I'm independent, you know what I mean? I don't have a backing like HBO. I don't have the funding HBO has. I don't have the subscribers that they have. But I've made a good name for myself on the independent scale, just doing what I'm doing, covering fights, and I think it's part of that is because people resonate with reality and just being truthful, just being honest, you know what I mean? And I just feel like HBO has a duty to, you're there to cover boxing. Like, there's so many ways I could break it down. Like, this is the fight that Golden Boy put together, and you're partnered with Golden Boy. They're paying you a licensing fee, and you're just dogging a Golden Boy fighter or whatever fighter is not providing you all non-stop action, and that's just not realistic. Like I said, only in the sport of boxing does this happen. For example, I watch sports in general. There's a lot of sports that I watch. Basketball, I watch baseball sometimes, you know what I mean? Definitely on important like playoffs and stuff. But baseball games sometimes they get a bit longer, so I don't get to catch all the San Francisco Giants games and stuff like that. But I've been to live games and different things like that. So I'm a fan. Boxing is obviously my number one. That's why my channel and brand is mainly vested in boxing. But the point being is I watch different sports, and for example, football. Not every single team is going to be a high energy like rushing team where they're just running the ball and juking and spinning out and stiff arming people and, you know, getting these first downs with breaking through the lines and, you know what I'm saying, and finding these little holes and exploiting them. And that's not how every fucking team in the NFL operates. You know what I mean? You have some teams that are like just almost mechanical, but they're like a well-oiled machine, and they're a passing team. They know they have a great quarterback. Some quarterbacks are so good, they have a quick release time. They don't even have to scramble and stuff as much as other people. They could just move the ball, you know what I'm saying? And just bomb, just throw a deep pass or whatever. So this is my point. In football, it's like you got to win. So some teams, every win is not going to be the same. Some teams, they have to kick 3 field goals and beat a team via field goals. Some people have a great rushing game, and some teams have a great passing game. You do what you have to do. Some teams are good rushing and passing, you know what I mean, different seasons. And that's what it is. And I think boxing is the same way. but it's like HBO goes out of their way to condemn the fighters that are not this all action rock'em sock'em robot stuff. And I think that's BS, and I don't think that, to me, it doesn't make sense, nor is it good, because you're basically you paid the license, or they paid you the licensing fee, and you're airing this fight, and you're telling us how shitty it is, basically, and how bad it is, and this is so boring. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a really negative person. I don't know. Maybe I'm different, but that's why I try to, if I know, I've had friends, my circle is small, you know what I mean? Because I don't like to be around negativity. People that stuff will weigh you down. You know, if you ever just been with someone, like you go, let's say you go, no matter what you do, you go to Puerto Rico on a vacation, you go to Bahamas, and all they do is complain. You know what I mean? It's like, why does HBO even host boxing if they hate the fight, if it's not going to be an action slugfest? You know what I'm saying? And me, for my channel, with the Boxing Ego brand, one thing that's important and imperative to me is to always be honest and always be real and be realistic. Like, if you're a fan of battle rap, I remember Serious Jones versus Murder Mook. He said, keep it real. You don't even keep it realistic. You know what I mean? And that's what I always try to do, is just keep it real, keep it realistic. And that's what I do when I break down fights. Bottom line, was Gamboa in prime form? No. But he shouldn't be, because he's been on the sidelines. He did not fight in the whole 2016. I think he had one scheduled fight, and his opponent was a drug dealer or some shit, and he got arrested in a hotel, so the fight got scrapped. Therefore, Gamboa's fight got canceled totally, and he wasn't with Golden Boy at the time. And he had no fight for all of 2016. You guys could do the research. Look, Gamboa, he has one loss, and that's to Terrence Crawford, a guy who's still unbeaten, still stopping guys like John Molina and whoever else, right? And Gamboa has not fought since 2017 or 2015. He just fought, but he hasn't fought since then, right? He's had 2 fights since being stopped in 2014. His only loss to Terrence Crawford, Olympic gold medalist. So fast forward to the future, his fight with RENE Alvarado, he's fighting at a catchweight. He's fighting, and this is the other part that bothers me about some of the HBO commentary. Shout out to Roy Jones Jr., man. And it's apparent him being a fighter has obviously blessed him with knowledge, because I constantly find Roy Jones Jr. doing a great job commentary. And he's doing it like the commentary thing, and he's always having to correct Jim Lampley and set the record straight and give a different perspective. And I love Roy Jones. He's I told you, he's my favorite fighter of all time. And I just like the job that he does. He could see the stuff, and it shows having that knowledge in the ring and just being respectful to the fighters. He gives it to you real. Like, even in the main event, Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux knocks out Curtis Stevens, and then Jim Lampley, go watch it back. Don't take my word for it. Jim Lampley is like, oh, David Lemieux, bang, bang, knocks him out with the right hand. And then instantly, Roy Jones like, that wasn't a right hand, Jim. That was a left hook. So how is Roy Jones, you guys are in the same, right next to each other. How is Roy Jones able to tell you what hand threw the punch, but Jim Lampley saying the wrong punch? You know what I'm saying? Or Alvarado's fighting Gamboa, and he'll miss, or the gloves will block the punch or something, and then Lampley's like, oh, he hits 2 hard rights, bang, bang. Like, what are you watching? You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Roy Jones. But this was my tweet. Jim Lampley needs to stop or get up in that ring. The opponent obviously doesn't want to push the action because Gamboa is presenting something. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, and the worst part about what HBO is doing to me is they know better. I think the knowledge is there. It's just they have this agenda and this notion that this is what they want to push for ratings. But not every fight is going to be Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But that's just a fact. Not every fight is going to be like Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman. It was cool, solid. But to me, I like Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter better. That was those 2 styles made for more of an explosive through 12 rounds fights. You know what I mean? Thurman had to be smart, he felt, in the back half. So he kind of let off the gas and was more conservative and just picking his spots and moving and exploiting Danny Garcia's weaknesses, which was his foot speed and not being able to close the distance and effectively cut off the ring. So, I mean, it is what it is. You got to look at that. And the cold part about it is, like I said, HBO knows better. They know what I really feel like they're just pushing this agenda or whatever. But shout out, see, Roy Jones Jr. always keeping 100. The guy that fought before. Imagine that. Exactly. It's just, you know what I mean? Imagine that the guy who's actually a fighter has the best commentary. But it's just sad, man. Like, just to see HBO just constantly badmouth. Like, Gamboa was dominating the fight. Whether it was impressive or not, he was clearly the one pushing the pace. Even Harold Letterman, who seems to be more impressed with aggressive fighters who were rock'em sock'em robots and stuff in recent memory, had it a shutout. So it's like, why are we condemning the winner and the guy who's clearly in the lead versus the guy who's supposed to be this tough guy from Argentina who is not really pushing the pace, right? Especially when they do these fighter meetings and stuff like that, so they have all the information. You know Gamboa, because they said it on the telecast. You know he has not fought since 2015. So why would you be as hard on Gamboa if you know that fact? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't, I mean, come on, you got to be realistic. That doesn't, to me, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense that you would hold him to the same standard as another fighter when another fighter is in a different situation. For example, Lomachenko has been fighting very frequently. Nicholas Walters hadn't. So, not saying Walters would have beat him, but like Troy King said, and like I said, he probably would have had at least a better showing had he been more active, because he would have had to maintain his weight instead of ballooning up to whatever weight he looked at when I did the Ego Weight Watchers, and Axeman Walters looked huge, right? And he would have had just less ring rust and stuff like that. And funny thing is, I tweeted this during the thing, Roy Jones just said what Troy King and me saying Nicholas Walters would have given Loma a better fight without inactivity, 100. So it's funny because I do videos, people get mad, they don't want to hear what I have to say or whatever. They want to hear Troy King. And then you have industry leaders and professionals and boxers and former boxers and trainers who corroborate the stuff we were saying. When me and Troy King did the video about the inactivity, we said that has to be considered. You know what I mean? And people are like, oh, you're just hating on Lomachenko. No, it's not hate. It's a fact. You have to compute all the facts. It's like a math problem. If the math problem has X, Y, Z equals this, you have to factor in all of the characters that you see. You know what I mean? Same thing with boxing. When I look at Gamboa, of course, I'm factoring in everything that I know about Gamboa. I know he's been on a layoff since 2015. So why would I expect him to be in full form? I know what Gamboa is capable of. He's a gold medalist, and if he gets some fights under him and gets his promotional shit right, and he gets active, then I think he can present problems for anybody. But it's like, why would you hold Gamboa to this standard? And they're talking about Cuban fighters, which I'm going to talk about more. Talking about Cuban fighters have a hard road because it's like they know what is the case, but they still push this agenda. They said it on the telecast. They said, oh, this is why the Cubans have a bad rap or hard time getting fights, because they're so skillful, they're so good. It makes the opponents gun shy, and it makes them hesitant to come forward, so they throw a career low amount of punches, and it's not as entertaining. That's not the Cubans' fault. That's not whoever's doing that, Crawford or Mayweather or whatever, and that's what's wrong with boxing. Again, like I said earlier, in the NFL, sometimes you have to win by 3 field goals. Sometimes you'll blow another team out. But the most important thing is you capture the victory, and you do it in a smart fashion. So back to the main event, Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux. Great fight. Very different from the Gamboa fight because of different reasons. Curtis Stevens and David Lemieux, to me, they're about on the same echelon, meaning neither one of them are known for having a defense, and they both have power, just like Alfredo El Perro Angulo and James Kirkland. That fight was exciting because they both lack defense. They both lack certain fundamentals, and they're more in the trenches action fighters. So you put them in the same ring together, then naturally it's gonna be explosive and combustible. Same thing with Stevens Lemieux. That's why we've seen a knockout. Now you put David Lemieux in there with Triple G, what happened? He couldn't get past the jab, and he looked bad. You know what I'm saying? Triple G was the smarter fighter and the guy who can box more with power, right? And he was breaking his man down, right? It's not uncommon, or it's not rocket science why this is the case. You know what I mean? I honestly believe this. If you get Jermall Charlo 3 fights or so and he's acclimated, you put him in there with David Lemieux, it's probably going to be a different fight. Styles make fights. You know what I mean? And HBO knows this. And they still blame the Cuban, or they still blame the guy who's methodical, the guy who's the skillful fighter. And a lot of you guys are agreeing with me. This is a comment. They cater to casuals too much. Exactly. And this is, to me, why their program is suffering. Truth, #agreed. These are comments you guys are leaving me. I was just thinking the same thing. Like, if I was a casual and didn't know these fighters, I would say, why am I watching this? Exactly. You're bad-mouthing the telecast. And see, I'm one person. My Twitter's not even as big as my YouTube or as my Instagram or Facebook. You know what I mean? My Twitter account. And these are all people, just regular boxing fans. I don't know them on a personal level. And this is what they're saying. So, like, here's what they think about you. I appreciate Gamboa's movement and defense. I certainly see why he was a gold medalist. So, obviously, there is a fan base out there that wants to watch fights in general, just boxing. You know what I mean? It's not all about just action fights. To me, that could get kind of boring, personally. I love a good slugfest if it's a level of skill involved. Like even the Curtis Stevens, David Lemieux, neither one of them is renowned for their defense, but with their offense, they were both trying to set things up. So that was a fun fight, right? They both had some level of a game plan. Like I really seen Stevens hurt David Lemieux in there, right? And I seen David Lemieux before the knockout hurt Curtis Stevens in there. And they were ripping each other's bodies. So they had like at least an approach. David Lemieux was coming out guns blazing, and Curtis Stevens was trying to stay more tight, high guard, and maybe let him punch himself out. There was a strategy. But then you also have action fights that some people went wild for, like Francisco Vargas versus Orlando Salido, and it started out fun, but to me, it lost me because no one was pulling away. There was no separation. It was just from round 1 to 12, it was all of the same thing, and it's like almost no one won. You know what I'm saying? Because no one showed elite level separation that, hey, I can make the proper adjustments to pull away from this guy and start winning the fight convincingly. You know what I'm saying? So those rock'em sock'em robot fights like that, to me, get boring. Just because nobody's doing like that. That was great. Like you watched Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter. I thought that was an awesome fight of the year type, and it had a lot of action. But I seen strategy. I seen Keith Thurman was losing, I think it was round 3, and then he was against the ropes, and then he clubbed Sean Porter with a nasty, it might have been a left hook that buckled Sean Porter, and you seen Sean Porter like reconsidering things, and he was hurt at the very end of the round. You know what I'm saying? But then you seen Sean Porter not take a step back, like, oh, I'm gonna stay in this dude's chest the whole fight, and then he hurt Thurman later in the fight to the body. That's a strategy. They're both doing things to like not give the person an inch. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, not all the fights are going to be like that. That's just what it is. And when Rigondeaux or other Cubans like Gamboa or people like Floyd Mayweather, Terrence Crawford, they always end up getting blamed for what the opponent is not doing. You know what I mean? I was at the Crawford Postal fight. I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? It could have been more competitive, but that's not Crawford's problem. He's winning. The taller man should be doing something. He's a champion. He don't want his belt to go. Then he needs to do something. He needs to make some adjustments, which he failed to do. And every time he tried something and tried to get maybe even a little bit more aggressive, he got hurt by Terrence Crawford. And Crawford was even going for the kill in the 12th round. But it's like certain fighters on HBO aren't getting any type of praise for that. You know what I mean? It's like you're not even being realistic. So back to the Gamboa fight. I said, see, Lampley said Gamboa needs an impressive knockout, otherwise the night is a bust. Yet Gamboa hasn't fought since 2015. LOL. That's dramatic. You know what I'm saying? So, like, to me, I think that, like, why, if a guy hasn't fought since 2015, why is it a loss? Or, like, you're putting that in the fans' mind that if he goes to a decision with this guy, then his whole night was a waste. Why would it be a waste when he hasn't fought in a year? You know what I'm saying? Why would we be expecting that? Take Lomachenko, a great fighter. Take Gennady Golovkin, a great fighter. Take them out of the mix for a year and see if they come back with their very strongest performance. Probably not. You know what I mean? But the fact is, they have been managed properly. Well, Gamboa or Golovkin wasn't early in his career, but the later part of his career, he's been managed properly. He's been active. He's getting 3-4 fights a year, and that's been the case. So of course he's going to be sharp. He never really has time to not get in shape, because if you fight 3 or 4 times a year, you're probably in pretty good shape throughout the year, versus some of these other guys like Axeman, Walters, Gamboa. You're taking a year off. Who knows what you were doing? Who knows how hard you were working out? You know what I mean? So people keep bringing up, oh, Gamboa, ring rust. I mean, what do you expect? Guys, James Kirkland fought Canelo off of a 1.5 layoff. But since he got knocked out, everybody is happy. But, you know, what do you expect? The best Kirkland and 50 Cent wasn't getting them active fights? Something special, man. You know what I mean? It's no mystery that fighters who are on the sidelines typically come back, and it's not their strongest performance. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., he came back after, I think, a 15-month layoff, and then he fought against Fonfara. Guess what? He got stopped. A known tough guy got stopped. You look at Mikey Garcia. He fought at 140 because he didn't want to come back down in too much weight against Elios Rojas, and it took him a couple rounds to set things up and start. He was losing rounds, you know what I'm saying? And then he ended up knocking the dude out. But then he came back off of that performance to 135, and he knocks out a champion because he just got one in the can. You know what I'm saying? So he just got that activity up under him. Gamboa, he didn't look so stellar like he did in the lighter divisions. He's on a 15-month layout. Lamont Peterson, I was at his last fight versus David Avanesian. He looked good in the second half, but he had to work up to that. It's not rocket science, you know what I mean? So it just doesn't make sense that Lampley is going to say Gamboa needs a knockout. Otherwise, basically, it's a failure. Another comment. Yeah, man, I agree with you. It's their old guard mentality, but they got to get off that. I think HBO got to get off of that. When Showtime has a fight, it's top 5 trending topic on social media. HBO don't even trend at all unless it's Canelo. Why does HBO keep Lampley in the seat? The sport has clearly passed him by, and he hates the sport, according to his commentary. See, these are what you guys are saying. Here's what they think about you. Again, Gamboa has dominated the fight. Everyone on HBO panel agrees. Ain't fought since 2015, yet he needs a KO. Otherwise, it's a lost opportunity. I can't co-sign that. I can't see why a guy who hasn't fought since 2015 and is dominating, even though it's not his most spectacular performance or there's no knockdowns, I can't understand why you would say that would be a bad thing. You know what I mean? That's like Tony Romo in football coming back off of let's say he broke his clavicle and he was out for 15 months, and he comes back and he's dominating a team in his conference. You know what I'm saying? But let's say he's not completing every single pass or something. You know what I mean? Like, what do you expect if he's coming off an injury, but they're still slaughtering? And that's a team sport versus one person. And I said, so HBO can't just be happy with Lemieux Stevens' main event, which should promise action. They got to slander the Gamboa fight and compare it. Again, you can't compare that. Like, Gamboa versus Terrence Crawford was both skilled fighters, both with power, both athletic. That was a war. This Rene Alvarado dude, it didn't look like he was willing to go for broke. Same thing with Joseph Igbeko versus Rigondeaux and certain fighters when they fight Rigondeaux. If they're not going to go for the kill because they see a level of skill, they're getting countered by the Cuban, then they're going to be hesitant. And that's what it is. And I said, not every fight is going to be nonstop scrappy action. Keep in mind, Lemieux and Stevens lost to Gennady Golovkin, which is, again, my point. My point is simple. It's you put two people in there with a similar style or all action style on the same skill plane, then of course it's going to be nonstop because no one knows how to evade too many shots, or they don't have the mentality to do it. You know what I mean? If Terrence Crawford was naturally a middleweight, do you think David Lemieux would look as sensational versus him? No, that style, because Terrence Crawford would be using some movement. He wouldn't just be right there to be hit. And it's not. Look, HBO only promotes Rock'em Sock'em Robot style. Crazy to me. The commentary has to improve, especially when you're losing to Showtime. Lemieux Stevens both lost hunger and power, but no defense, lacks some fundamental skill, which is why it should be all action. Styles make fights. Yep, that's why Al Heyman killing the game right now. See, and this is my other tweet. I could talk about this all day. Gamboa has one loss, and people act like he's washed up, right? He's on a 15-month layoff, got a new promoter, so he's on the undercard, and they're nitpicking his every move and lack of action and stuff like that. Oh, can't wait till we get to the main event, and that type of negative attitude, right? But see, this is the thing, and like I understand more and more why Floyd Mayweather, Money Mayweather, is what Floyd. If you ever heard this, just keep doing you, man, because you can never make motherfuckers happy. So I understand Floyd now, the Money Mayweather, and like how he, like, if you're Maidana or Cotto and you make Floyd work, then he's gonna work. He has no choice, otherwise he'll lose, right? And he knows that. But if it's like Berto and he's just not on your skill level, and you can conserve your energy, do what you have to do, and breeze to a decision, or just make Pacquiao look bad and pot shot him and stuff without getting too reckless, and then easily beat him. He only lands 71 punches. Do that. Take the least amount of punishment, because at the end of the day, motherfuckers won't be happy either way. Because like I said, if Gamboa went in there after 15 months and gets knocked out by an unknown Rene Alvarado because he's ring rusty and he's trying to do too much and trying to listen to the crowd boos and fight a dumb fight, and he's been out of the ring, because sparring is not the same as being in the ring, right? Then what would they say about Gamboa? They'll say, oh, he's a bum, he's washed up, he needs to hang him up, he's not the same Gamboa. So it's like boxing is such a cruel sport. It's almost a catch-22. Either you lose or you lose. And then as I was tweeting that, Gamboa got knocked down, and I said, see, you know what I'm saying? You tell him, like, he starts fighting to try to please you, like Bradley did versus, and I talked to Bradley, he confirmed this. I was like, did you have a chip on your shoulder? He said, hell yeah. And then you fought Ruslan some kind of commando way, and you nearly paid for it, and it was your toughest fight, and you almost got knocked out for it. Crazy. And then finally, Jim Lampley says, we're going to show you this replay because something actually happened, and it was when Gamboa got knocked down. Nothing happened throughout the fight. Dreadful fight. It's just, to me, I think that's a very negative attitude for the commentators. Like, why are companies paying you like licensing fees, and fans are paying for subscriptions, and then you're just bad mouthing how much of a stinker and snooze fest the fight is? And to me, some of the fights that they do it for aren't even all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to be honest, to be frank, you guys can say whatever you want, but to me, the David Lemieux fight versus Golovkin was rather boring, because David Lemieux clearly wasn't in it. Golovkin doesn't have a style that is like physically, it's not always physically stunning when he's not going for the kill, when he's just working behind the jab, because he doesn't have like Roy Jones reflexes or speed or athleticism. So, you know what I mean? That wasn't the most exciting fight. So again, you guys got to understand, when it comes to this boxing, you got to first of all respect the guys that lace him up. And like, as far as the Gamboa fight, I mean, he did what he had to do. 15-month layoff. He got a unanimous decision. Nobody's disagreeing that he dominated the fight. So it's like, why are you pushing him to, he has to get a knockout, otherwise this was for nothing? That's stupid. Because if he messes around and gets knocked out, then guess what? Now everyone's going to write Gamboa off and be like, aha, you're done for. You know what I'm saying? So fans got to be fans and be realistic. And Roy Jones, to his credit, during the telecast, he said that. He said he got to worry about not being the spectacular knockout instead of just trying to push for the knockout. You don't want to do stuff. And again, Roy Jones knows, because he's a fighter and he knows what to do, and he knows the feeling and stuff like that. And you know, in your body, you haven't been around. I challenge anybody And they can have a simple job, like a cashier at Walmart, right? Go away from Walmart for 15 months. I've worked retail for a large chunk of my life. I've worked retail. Go away from your retail job for 15 months and then come back. And I guarantee you, you're not going to be as effective had you been working there that whole year and a half straight. It's just a fact. Because what happens is companies end up doing changes. Sometimes they have updates to their computer systems. They do different things that may not have been the case before, right? You know what I mean? Just advancements and different stuff. You have new coworkers. So you got to look at it from the point of a fighter and what you're seeing, and just be realistic. You know Gamboa has been on a 15-month layoff. Why would you be pressing him and saying he has to get a knockout? I mean, honestly, that doesn't make sense. I can understand the fight. Let's say the fight didn't live up to your expectation. You thought it was going to be explosive. Then blame Alvarado. He's the one that's losing every single round, and he has to do something about it, and he can't. Tell him to just go in there and swing wide until he knocks Gamboa out or gets knocked out, since that's what you want. You know what I'm saying? But these fighters they know what's on the line. He's not trying to go out like that and get stretched and become a highlight reel knockout. And again, you look at the main event, Curtis Stevens. People are saying, "Oh, look at Stevens. He got knocked out. I hope he's okay." You know what I mean? And saying he should retire. So these fighters got to be them, and they got to fight smart with their situation. Same thing with Demetrius Andrade. You guys, I'm sick of talking about it. I can think of too many examples. Demetrius Andrade fought a rematch fight from the amateurs, a guy who is now a champion, who wanted to avenge that amateur loss, who was tough, and he didn't look as good as he normally does, like Jack Kukale in that fight in Germany. Maybe he had jet lag, I don't know. But I'm sure not being active has something to do with that. And it's no different with Gamboa. And I just hope HBO gets it through their head that you got to tell the fan, you have to be real with the fans. People respect honesty, you know what I'm saying? And I don't feel like HBO always does an honest job. Like, I feel like they're pushing so hard for every fight to be this war. You know what I mean? Same, like, you look at it, here's another HBO fighter, Francisco Vargas. Some of the dumbest management of his career. They put him in there with an unknown Takashi Miura on the Canelo Cotto undercard. His eye looked like shit in the fight, and it was a brutal war where he almost got stopped before he turned it around in the very next round and stopped Takashi Miura, a guy who's a puncher, right? Then they put him in there with Orlando Salido. That was allegedly a fight of the year, right, in 2016. Another war for 12 rounds, just clubbing each other to death and beating up on each other. No one really has a separation, like I said earlier. And then you put him in there with Miguel Berchelt, and he ends up stopping Francisco. That's not, I don't know. I don't think that's right for the fighters. I think Francisco Vargas, as a WBC champion, he should have been afforded a fight in between there to just fully recover, scar tissue, the eye damage, maybe not a puncher, you know what I mean? Because now look at him. He's been through back-to-back wars, and look at him. Same thing with Mike Alvarado and all these other guys. Gabe Rosado. You put them in all these tough fights, and it's good. They got crazy resumes, but your shelf life is very short. And that's what HBO is like. It's almost trying to create some blood sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, where it's just, if you're all action, if you're not all action, we're going to highly criticize you and encourage people to boo you and pretty much brainwash people that this is not what they want to see. Just let the people decide what they want. You know what I mean? The crowd booing live, that's them. People at home might not have had that much of a problem with it had you not encrypt that and put that in their brains. So I just really hope HBO gets out of this whole lane of feeling that every fight has to be explosive, nonstop action, because if you watch any sport and you go to expect that, then that's not really logical. You know what I mean? Not every team, every football team is going to be super explosive and have these like crazy like 90-yard returns and shit like that. Not everyone has a good special teams. Not everyone has these elite level running backs. Some people are passing teams, just like I said before. So Gamboa got the win how he had to. He's off of a layoff, and we got to just be realistic when it comes to that. So let me know what you guys think. I think Gamboa should get a couple more fights and then go after a big name, the Berchelts and the Lomachenkos, things like that. These are the fights that he should be working for. Jason Sosa, if he beats Lomachenko, which is maybe even a long shot. I don't know, because I think Jason Sosa is he's a good fighter. But that's my full breakdown of the Gamboa fight and the HBO commentary. But I had to mention it, and again, I just feel like people have to be realistic, and the Cuban experience and like technical fighters, guys with skills, it seems like they get underappreciated and almost thrown under the bus more than people who lack skill. Like, if you lack skill and just go out there and just show heart and grit and get knocked out, you almost get praised more than a Terrence Crawford who's showing you exceptional ability and skill, but they're gonna say you're boring. So to me, I say all these fighters, fight your fight. If you're a slugger, slug it out till you knock them out or you get knocked out. If you're a skilled fighter, use your skills, use your legs, do whatever you got to do, because at the end of the day, nobody's gonna be on your side. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not popping, you're not popping, and that's just what it is. Like I said, if Gamboa got knocked out, people were complaining, "Oh, he was boring, he's ring rusty." Imagine if he got knocked out like Curtis Stevens by an unknown. They'd be like, "Oh, he's done. He needs to hang him up." So you got to almost pick your poison, because it's a catch-22 at the end of the day. Either if you know what I'm saying, if you're not just spectacularly knocking people out like the Ward Kovalev fight, you know what I mean? Then it's just, oh, that was boring, and oh, he ran. Even though Ward didn't even run. You know what I'm saying? You got to give more respect to the different styles. That's my whole point. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you share the video, like the video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.